Hey everybody, welcome back to the Overwatch League Report. I'm Brad.
I'm Ben.
And we're here to talk all about week number 2. Ben, what are your thoughts right off the bat?
Yeah, I mean, this week was great. There was a lot of good matches. I'm still very excited for the season. I know this is definitely going to be the most hype Overwatch video that's released this week, for sure.
Right, yeah, no, there's definitely nothing else that could possibly rival it.
Yep.
Can't believe Blizzard would do that, do us like that,
Yeah,
and just
can't
drop a
believe
new
that.
hero out of nowhere.
Yeah,
But
we had no
here we are.
preparation for this at
Right.
all.
Yeah, so we haven't really got to look too much at the heroes, so we're not going to talk about that, especially because the heroes are not going to be available in competitive play for the Overwatch League probably until at least stage 2, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's my guess.
And
They didn't
then
even release the hero.
yeah, even then, who knows if he'll be used.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, for now,
I hope so.
Ben, or I guess, what are your big takeaways from this week?
My big takeaways are the New York Excelsior and the Titans are crazy good.
Yeah, no, definitely the Titans. You called it. I think you had them as the best expansion team.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about that at all. They're phenomenal. They're living up to all the expectations so far. And Excelsior, the things they did to the Outlaws should be illegal. It was
Yeah.
not okay at all.
Yeah, we talk about we've had so far a lot of really close matches, a lot of surprising upsets, a lot of like really crazy like back and forth kind of thing. Like that's kind of what the one good thing about Goats is it kind of lends itself to a lot of like back and forth, give and take style
Mm.
matches. We did not get that at all with the New York Excelsior and Houston Outlaws match.
No, it was about as one sided as it can possibly be, and yeah, like you said, I think a lot of people notice it's kind of like a dam breaking in goats. Is like they have two teams fighting. I think there was a stat that in the Justice and Spitfire match there was a battle where 14 ultimates were used and no one died.
Yep.
But then it's like once one person dies on one side, it's over.
Yeah, I mean that specific stat, which I'd also seen, could also be attributed to the fact that the Spitfire and the Justice are both really, really bad at goats, and
Right.
like we had Corey wasting a grav, and then Bedosin reacting to him wasting a grav, not realizing that he wasted it by wasting a trance. So it's like,
So it's a little bit of padded stats, is what you're saying on that.
yeah, I mean, you're not gonna get that with better teams, but
Right.
definitely,
So
yeah.
they said the Excelsior and the Runaway, they're looking great, obviously. Probably the two favorites, I would say, in my mind, anyways.
Yeah.
Anyone else you'd say is looking really good?
Yeah, I think that we've seen continuing this week, the Rain and the Eternal have both continued to really impress and kind of outpace expectations. Although I did in our preseason, I very much hyped up the Eternal and said that people were
Mm,
sleeping on them. As I mentioned last week, and I'll continue to mention for as long as they're in like third place, whatever place they're in right now, because I told people that everyone's putting the Eternal in their like 14, 13
yep.
place, and it's like no, they're possibly they could potentially be the best team in the league, at least right now in this meta. It's going to be a question mark whether they continue to dominate if the meta were to shift, but
Mm.
for right now, and I still think even into the future, they're looking like they're going to be contenders to take it all the way. So
Yeah,
yeah, and then the Rain, of course.
yeah, the Rain's very good. Fran, super good. Obviously, if he can just stay together. I know there was a stream earlier this week where he talked
Hmm.
about the pressure and just the whole lifestyle of the Overwatch League getting to him a little bit. Where he said he wanted to quit, but he doesn't quit. He's still playing, and he's still playing at a very high level.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what we touched on that people didn't like to hear in the
Mm.
preseason was that Dafran does have a history of just, issues with mental stability,
Mm,
and not like he's unstable, but like he's
yeah.
he has issues with like keeping his mind in a good place.
Right.
And I've enjoyed watching him so far.
Mm.
I'm not rooting against Dafran, despite what many
We
many
have to
people who
every
watch our
episode just
videos.
be like,
Yeah,
we like Dafran, we want him to do well.
yeah.
We just have some
Uh,
questions.
but yeah, I think uh, there is an issue to look at with Dafran talking about on stream that he was really close to quitting the team.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
hopefully he
not
can
something. Yeah.
hopefully he can get the help that he needs and he can stay in because I think everyone is enjoying watching him play right now and enjoying watching Atlanta be a serious contender in the early stages of this season. Ben, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the reason my backdrop is in red. The Shanghai Dragons. They finally won it was at the expense of our beloved Boston Uprising. Tough week to be a Boston fan.
Yeah, tough week in several ways, but we'll focus on the way of the uprising
Yes, please,
losing.
please.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, 19 teams out of 20, or 19, the fans of 19 teams out of 20 were extremely happy to see
Yeah.
the Shanghai Dragons win their
Mm,
first match in 2 seasons. Preseason, when we talked about the Dragons, I said that this was the most likely match for them to get their first win.
you caught it.
You know,
So
I'll
anyone
just
doubts Ben,
continue. Yeah, I'll continue to bring up every time I'm right and ignore all
right?
the times I'm wrong.
Yeah, what those didn't happen at all.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, congratulations to the Shanghai Dragons. It sucks that we won the uprising loss. Two, that they were affected adversely by a very strange rule. Um,
You know, that kind of crippled the team by taking away their main tank and
yeah,
primary shot caller.
yeah, not using it as an excuse, of course, just saying it's an unfortunate situation, and hopefully they're able to get Fusions signed as a long term because, oh boy, Ben, if they do not have him, it's going to be
Yeah,
rough sailing.
I mean, luckily, next week, Boston only has one match. Actually, no, they have two. Never mind.
Yeah, they had one this week.
Yeah, they have two. They're playing the Dynasty and the Defiant next week,
Hmm.
which would be tough matches even with fusions. So
Yeah, this could be bad. It could be an end to any stage one playoff hopes with this weekend.
yeah, I think
Dropping
that
to potentially 1-4, that would probably seal the deal for them.
yeah, I think that it's not looking good for the Uprising to have any kind of potential playoff shot in the near future. Shanghai, on the other hand, if we look at their upcoming matchups, they have a decent amount of pretty favorable matchups coming up.
Mhm.
The Hunters have been outperforming expectations, but they are still very much a hit or miss team. They're
Mhm.
playing the Fuel twice, and then I believe they're playing the. Let me see what their final match is. They're playing the Spitfire, who definitely improved this week, but
Mhm.
are still very shaky on goats. And from the Shanghai Uprising match, we've seen that Shanghai is able to perform at a high level.
Right.
Yeah,
And like you said, they're playing the Fuel a couple times. The Fuel, they're such an enigma to me. Like one
yeah,
game they're awful, and the next game they look really great. So I don't. What is happening there, Ben?
yeah. They'll upset the dynasty, and then they'll come back and they'll like lose pretty disgustingly against the Charge, who are kind of a mediocre team,
Mhm.
and they'll turn back around and they'll beat the Fusion,
Yeah.
who like while it was definitely not a good match for the Fusion, they did miss out on having Boombox this week, which is why they
Right.
probably went 0-2, or at least a major factor in why they went
Mhm.
0-2. So yeah, it's very strange. The Fuel are very much hot and cold, which is surprising because their logo would suggest that they should
They'd
always be
always be
hot.
hot. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think they're a very talented team. They're just so inconsistent.
yeah.
Ben, who would you say is on like the downswing? We talked about the uprising potentially being. Who else would you put in that category?
Yeah, I think that other than the Fusion, who I think were only on downswing because of the lack of boombox, or they're
Mm.
forced to have Elk in that role that he's not familiar with. I think the two main teams that we're seeing on a downswing right now are the Shock to a lesser extent,
Mm.
and then the Spark to a major extent.
Right.
Yeah, so the Spark especially have looked iffy. They went 0-2 this week against some pretty not great teams so far. They lost first to the Houston Outlaws, who got their first match win of the season
Mm-hmm.
after they finally figured out how to field a proper Goats roster.
Right.
And then they lost to the Spitfire, who, despite obviously coming in as the defending champions, have not shown a great proclivity to being able to play well in this meta. So I'm very surprised that the Spark has taken a such a nosedive in
Mm-hmm.
week 2, and I'm very very much looking forward to seeing if that would continue into next week.
Yeah. What do you think about the LA Valiant?
Yeah, the Valiant are another team that I considered putting in this group. The issue
Mm.
with the Valiant is they haven't really had a super bad match. They've
Mm.
had 3 very close matches against pretty high tier teams.
Mm.
So it's really difficult to evaluate the Valiant right now with this data set that we have. Definitely something to keep an eye on in the future when they start playing worse teams, and if they
Mm.
can kind of hold their own from there. But yeah, it's definitely not something to be expected for the Valiant to come into the season starting 0-3.
No, definitely not. All right. So who else would you put in this group that you wanted to mention?
I think those are the main downturns that we've seen.
Mm.
Those 4 teams, but the Valiant haven't really taken a downturn. They've kind of just stayed down.
Yeah, competitive, but not actually pushing through.
Right. The other teams to talk about potentially are the Charge, the Mayhem, and the Hunters, who have
Mm.
all very much outperformed expectations coming in, where most people expected them to be bottom 5, bottom 10 teams,
Mm.
and they all have at least had one really solid match where we have the Charge 4-0ing the Fuel. We
Mm.
have the Mayhem and the Hunters both having also solid matches as well. The Hunters did have a rough match against Seoul, but their match against each other was very well contested, and it didn't look like 2 bad teams playing against each other.
Mm.
So I'm excited to see where those 3 teams go.
All right. Is there anything else you want to touch on for week 2 before we look ahead?
No, I think we can look ahead to next week. So.
All right. Well, tell me, what are you expecting to be good, bad, exciting going into week 3?
Yeah, so I think I picked out one match a day,
Mm.
and for 3 of the 4 days, I think that was relatively easy. I'll talk about the 4th day when we get there. So starting on Thursday, we have the match that I'm going to focus on here is the Shock versus the Spark.
Okay.
I think that, like I mentioned, both of those teams are the teams that have taken the biggest, really unprecedented downturn from week 1 to week 2.
Mm.
Seeing how they perform against each other, and whether one of those teams can kind of pull out their week 1 performance level will be interesting to see. I'm predicting the. What was that?
I was just saying, this is the kind of are they really good match.
Right. Yeah. This is where the tires meet the asphalt kind of thing.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So I'm predicting the Shock to win this,
Okay.
just because I think they've looked less bad. Like their downturn has been much less extreme than the one that we've seen from the Spark this past week. So unless the Spark can really pick up and get a lot of value out of players like Bebe on their team who have had really high highs, I think the Shock will probably take this.
All right. And what about day 2?
Day 2 is, I think, going to be the most exciting day. I think all 4 matches on Friday are going to be really strong.
Mm-hmm.
The one that I'm looking at, though, is going to be the Defiant against the New York Excelsior.
Gotcha.
We
Yeah,
have...
that would be great.
So, spoiler alert, I'm going to have both of the Excelsior's matches in here. And I think that the reason is because it's going to be a question mark as to whether the Excelsior are beatable, right? We saw them play a really close matchup against the Uprising in week 1.
Gave us a lot of hope.
Yeah. And that was very surprising, especially from how the Uprising have kind of performed after that. But yeah, I think that the big question mark here is going to be whether the Defiant are actually a top tier team, or that they've just kind of been able to coast so far off of their matchups and off of kind of some really like spicy plays they've done.
Right.
So I'm predicting the Excelsior to win this matchup, but I'm going to be rooting for the Defiant because I think that would be really exciting.
All right, so day number 3.
Day number 3, the most exciting matchup by far is going to be the Paris Eternal against the Atlanta Reign. Another set of teams that I talked about kind of as a package deal earlier, where both of them have been performing much higher than many people expected coming in. They're both top 4 teams right now. So it's going to be exciting to see whether the Eternal continues to be undefeated or whether the Reign can take a win off of them.
And how about for day number 4?
So like I mentioned earlier, I think that the match to look at on day 4 on Sunday is the Excelsior's second match of the week against the Dynasty. And I chose this one as well because I think that this is the match that the Excelsior are going to lose and the Dynasty are going to upset them. Yeah.
So you're going to put it right here on tape, your reputation on the line. This is where the Excelsior will lose for the first time.
Yes, I think that they're going to lose to the Dynasty. So we can clip this and put it on Twitter after it happens, and I can look like a genius.
Right. And then if it doesn't happen, we'll just pretend this didn't happen at all.
Just brush it under the rug. Yeah.
Sounds good to me. So what do you think about the Dynasty gives them the edge here in this matchup?
Yeah, I think this matchup is just going to come down to a main tank head-to-head between Mano and Fisher, and I think that Fisher is just better main tank, honestly. And most of the New York's success has come from other players in the team, like Meko and Nene, who have really shined in their individual roles. Nene has been one of the best Zaryas in the league, one of the best just DPS players in the league. DPS players, hands down. And then Meko has been really good, especially when he flexes to Sombra. But the Dynasty also have Michelle, who has been really good in flexing to Sombra. I think that Michelle is a really strong, underrated player on that team. And I think that he's going to help them hold their own. So we'll see.
Hey,
it's going to be close.
I'm going to be rooting for it because I want you to be right, and I want us to be able to, the second after the get that third map win, to just tweet it out and be like, we got it. Everyone should watch the show. All right, is there anything else you want to add before we sign off for tonight?
No, that's good. I'm very excited for week 3. I'm especially excited for the matches that we're going to see on Friday. So, yeah, super pumped.
I am as well. So for Ben and Brian, thank you guys so much for watching. Ben, where can they find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Ben Sharon, on Twitch at Trey of Spades, but I don't really stream on my personal channel much anymore. But I'll be on there in Twitch chat and stuff during streams. So, yeah, that's it.
Awesome. You guys can find Where You Get Everything on Twitter at WG Everything, on Instagram at Where You Get Everything. Make sure you check out our blog at www.whereyougiteverything.com and check out our Twitch stream at twitch.tv. /wicked everything. How about that? All of them will wicked everything. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and let us know what match you're most looking forward to in the comments down below. Have a great day.